That's your emergency. That.
In 1973, a scientific expedition in the jungle searches for a spider whose venom can regenerate cells and cure many diseases. A colleague helps a co-worker in her search because it's not easy for her. Every moment must be spent trying to survive in the wilds of the Amazon in the last month of pregnancy, hundreds of miles from medical care. As soon as the woman finds the insect, a colleague takes it away and shoots her and several others. Fortunately, a secret tribe from the trees comes to the rescue. Bitten by spiders, these people have gained superpowers. To save the mother, they had to provoke her to be bitten by a spider, and a little later, they had to help her give birth. Holding a newborn girl in his arms, the chief obstetrician explains that he will wait for her to answer all her questions. Year 2003. All grown up, Casey drives an ambulance around New York City. Her partner Ben Parker is trying to do everything he can to make sure that their patient gets to the hospital. Afterwards, they have breakfast where, during a casual conversation, Ben tells Casey that he has met someone and that it is very serious. After the workday is over, Casey returns to an empty apartment. Remembering her mother, she looks at her photos and checks her diary, and the next morning it's back to work. She gets a call about a 3-car accident. One had overturned and was hanging on the edge of a bridge. Casey helps the driver out of the car. She doesn't make it in time, and the car falls into the water with her. Ben pulls his partner out of the water, but she manages to stay in a state of clinical death for a full 3 minutes. Ben recommends going to the hospital. He doesn't like her oxygen level. A powerful déjà vu disheartens the first second, but Casey shrugs it off and heads home. In the next frame, we see an old acquaintance, the same colleague from the expedition, Ezekiel. He is neatly dressed and looks presentable. However, we immediately notice the discrepancy between his appearance and the fact that more than 20 years have passed. But for some reason, the makeup artists didn't bother to make this character look at least a little older since the expedition. Well, maybe they added some gray curls. Anyway, he picks up a girl at the theater and takes her home. At night, he has a dream in which he is killed by 3 spider women. Waking up in a cold sweat, he tells his guest what he has seen and his plans for the future. Rather than wait to die at the hands of 3 strangers, he decides to find them first and get rid of them. After demonstrating this kind of judgmental logic, a question arises. What makes him think that meeting them won't lead to the same end as in the dream? What happens next just blows the last bit of logic out of the water. The girl turns out to be an agent, who decides that pulling a gun out of her purse in front of a man who is sharing his plans with her is a very subtle gesture. On the other hand, if she hadn't done that, we wouldn't have realized that she was an assassin and that the strange guy knows how to kill his victims just by touching them. Casey shows up at a barbecue with Ben and his family. His fiancée is pregnant, and everyone has gathered to give her presents and guess the baby's name. The balloon bursts and Casey is offered a snack, and they ask her version of the name. Moments later, all of these events repeat themselves. This time, the girl pays attention, but once again, she has no time to figure anything out because there is a fire on the docks, and all the doctors are called back to work. But at the scene, Casey continues to experience a sense of déjà vu. Everything that happens around her repeats immediately. At one point, she sees her boss get into an ambulance, and at the first intersection, a huge truck crashes into it. Casey asks her boss for permission to drive the ambulance herself, but he refuses. 10 seconds pass, and the girl sees the ambulance get hit by a truck. Casey runs to the crash site, pulls out the bleeding supervisor, and begins indirect cardiac massage. There is blood on all hands, but this does not bother the girl. Thank goodness Ben pulls her away. What about our antagonist Ezekiel? Having access to the latest technology, he was able to create realistic identikit images of the trio's faces based on his memories. Then, for some reason, he decides that they are now definitely 10 years younger, because for some strange reason, he has already established for himself that death in his dream is an event in 10 years. While Ezekiel is looking for the girls, Casey is being examined by a doctor. She doesn't like the déjà vu attacks, but the doctor sees no abnormalities. The only recommendation is a short vacation. However, the déjà vu attacks continue at home. She sees a pigeon crash through the window and fall on the ledge. Casey approaches and opens the window. A pigeon flies into the apartment and flies out again. By opening the window, she prevented the pigeon from being killed on the glass. The girl realizes that she sees fragments of the future. She goes to the station and gets on the train. By an unimaginable coincidence, 3 girls, future superheroes, are also on the train. They don't know each other yet, but Casey already sees fragments of them being killed one by a man on the same train. When she sees Ezekiel approaching from another car, she forces the girls to get off the train. The man doesn't have time to jump off, but he does have time to see who was so quick to help the victims escape death. As Casey tries to explain to the teens why she made them come out, Ezekiel is already crawling on the ceiling above the platform in a spider costume. Just by pointing at him, Casey convinces the girls that they have reason to be worried. The chase begins. The girls run through the maze of subway corridors, jumping from train to train. But the killer spider gets closer and closer. Casey finally steals a cab and drives down a city street, trying to figure out what to do next. In this nervous moment, the girls' dialogue is hilarious as they figure out that according to science, a man couldn't climb walls, and therefore science is bad. An argument about science ensues. Then Casey hears on the radio that she is wanted for kidnapping teenagers. She tries to explain to the girls that none of this is true, but she really can't let them go since they are the only witnesses to what really happened. Then she takes them into the woods where no cameras can find them, and finally tells them everything. When they decide that the man on the ceiling looks more like a spider, Casey decides to check her mother's diary. She asks the girls to wait for her here and drives to her house. Parked at the back door, she thoughtfully rips the license plates off the cab so some random cop can't use them to figure her out. From the diary, she learns of a tribe of spider people. Of course, the girls didn't wait for Casey. They were hungry, so they went to the nearest diner they had spotted at the edge of the forest. Determined to be discreet, they immediately meet a group of guys at a neighboring table and sit down with them. Ezekiel is on their trail and makes his way to the diner. Casey arrives in the woods when it's already dark. Of course, the girls are no longer at the spot, but somehow Casey determines the direction by a bag of chips thrown on the ground, and after half a mile, she arrives at the diner. There, the girls, trying not to draw attention to themselves, are already dancing on the table. Moreover, it looks very unnatural because both the guys and the girls are absolutely sober. After picking up the gorillas, Casey heads for the exit, but Ezekiel walks into the diner in a spider costume and methodically begins killing everyone he can reach. The last to be stabbed in the stomach is Casey herself. A moment later, Casey comes to her senses in the woods near the car. She saw the future again. The girl jumps behind the wheel of a cab and races to the diner. She sees Ezekiel walk through the door and drive full speed into the same spot, knocking the guy down. While he tries to come to his senses, she puts the girls in the car and drives off. Ezekiel orders her assistant to find them, but she discovers that the girl accompanying them is the daughter of the same scientist from the expedition 20 years ago. Meanwhile, Casey takes the girls to a roadside motel and hides with them in one of the rooms they rented. So what does she do a few hours later when the girls fall asleep? Leaves them alone again. She returns to the diner and wanders around the ruined establishment until her mind begins to see Ezekiel. For some reason, they start talking, and Ezekiel tells Casey the reason for his hunt for girls. That's when Casey wakes up. It turns out that she didn't go anywhere, but is still in the room with the sleeping girls. In the morning, she tells the teens that their enemy is capable of poisoning them with a powerful toxin, and then their heart may stop. That's when you have to perform indirect cardiac massage. Of course, Casey loves it so much that she happily starts teaching the girls how to do it. She then tells them about her mother's diary and about a tribe in Peru that can climb trees like spiders. It seems that Casey will have to fly to Peru to sort things out. She'll be gone for a week, so she hands the girls over to her partner Ben and his fiancé. We see her fly, drive, walk, and finally climb into the deep jungle, following the map from the diary. As a result, she is found by the same chief who once helped her mother to deliver baby. He leads Casey to the same cave and pushes her into the water. As she dives in, the girl begins to see the past. All her life, she has been angry with her dead mother, not understanding why she would go into such a wilderness in the last month of her pregnancy. But now she learns that doctors have predicted the birth of a sick child. So the mother went in hopes of finding a spider to cure her daughter. The chief tells the girl that seeing the future is only the beginning of the power that awaits her, so she can defeat Ezekiel without physical superpowers. At the same time, the girls at Ben's house are acting like pigs and the fiancé's water breaks, so Ben has no choice but to get them all in the car and drive to the hospital. Of course, the cameras catch them on the way, and after a few minutes, Ezekiel already knows where they're going. Casey returns from her Amazon tour, but all she sees is an empty house, and immediately after that, a future in which Ezekiel blows up a car with her friends. So she steals an ambulance and gives chase. Ezekiel is already on the hood of their car and holding a hand grenade, but a moment later, from somewhere on the second floor, an ambulance bursts through the wall and flies over Ben and the others, knocking Ezekiel to the ground. She then transfers the girls into the miraculously surviving ambulance and steps on the gas. The stalker doesn't lag behind, jumping from roof to roof of passing cars, getting closer and closer to the ambulance. Casey asks to charge the defibrillator and lean it against the roof at her command. Ezekiel jumps onto the roof of the ambulance. An electric shock knocks him to the ground.
Now!
The The girls leave the ambulance and run to the dock building. The helicopter is already circling in the sky. Ezekiel will show up any minute. There is almost no time left. They spread burning checkers on the explosives, and all that's left is to get to the roof. The killer shows up, but the explosions slow him down. By this time, the girls are up and running to the south end of the roof so the helicopter can pick them up. Ezekiel ruins all the plans. He blows up the helicopter and scatters the teens in different directions. The power awakens in Casey to be in several places at once and save each of the girls. She then finds herself alone with the killer. She sees the future and knows where some metal fragments will fly. She makes sure that Ezekiel is in the line of impact at that moment. At this point, she tells Ezekiel that girls are not his future, that she is his future. Ezekiel falls down, and after a few seconds, a huge letter P falls on the poor spider and crushes him. That was Pepsi's P. Casey falls into the water herself, but the girls pull her out, and of course, her heart stops beating. It's time for CPR, and the girls know how to do it. That's how good defeats evil, and Ben's fiance gives birth to a baby. Thank you for watching, folks. Hope you liked it. You can check another interesting recaps in the channel. Don't get left behind. Join me for best movie recaps. Hit that subscribe button, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Goodbye till the next recap.